Welcome back to part 24 of my Stationeers Europa playthrough. In this part we are going to finish the ore room. Well, we're going to try anyway. So let's plug this chip in here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name that button Q. I see button Q. You'll see I haven't used any of the memory chips yet. We're on the simple stuff at the moment. I'm going to set that there, and I am going to get the screwdriver. I'm going to lift up here. I'm going to just quickly toggle that on and let it generate an error so I know what I'm pointing at. That's pointing at the button scanner, so that needs to go and point at IC button scanner. Perfect. There we go. Right, now if I were to press a button, like for example request iron, that should end up with a value of 1 set in it, which it has. Because that had 1, and then this detected that had 1 and added it to its queue, but there's no system anywhere further down to do anything about that, so it just stays set to 1, and that's fine. We're gradually building up the logic one step at a time. Right, now, how's this going? Turn that off. Short answer is hotly. Just wondering whether maybe there was nothing in it, but I did think I'd left some electrum to cook. Apparently not. Apparently that was just rather unfortunate of me. No, okay. Right, once that pressure comes down, it will pass through the right heat to make electrum. That will be good. Right, did we use this up yet? Yes, we did. Great, because that means I can put that in there. That one can be recycled when we go inside. I suppose while I'm waiting, at the risk of blowing some more stuff up, let's do that in 2 pieces, half, get that in there. Right, getting there. I suppose I could... oh, it's already emptying. I was going to say I could actively empty it, but it's already doing that, so I can't really actively empty it much faster. How is the pipe pressure on there looking? No, that's okay, we're still quite a lot of capacity in there. Actually, more to the point, what's the temperature doing? 220 degrees, okay, that's fine. So it should be doing a reasonable heat transfer inside. Right. Come on, let's get this out. I want the electrum, I want to make the next piece in the process. Right, needs to be below 2.4, I believe. Getting there. Right, so this should make 18, which actually, combined with what I've got in there, might even be enough to make 4 chips. I might be able to get quite a bit of this system built, but I'm going to run out of soup power, aren't I, in a minute? 1, 2, 3, 4. I can actually get most of this system operational for at least non-alloys, which is a good start. So let's try and do that before the end of the episode. Right, come on, I'll take that. Thank you very much. Right, make sure that is now set off. That is turned off. Okay, let's get inside before the soup battery runs out. go. Yikes, that was a bit close. Right, okay. Steel. Oh, I need gold, but I've got gold. And I've got steel. Wait, before I check that, did I have steel in there? I don't think I have anything in there, do I? No, I don't. Right, okay. Right, I'll take that and I'll take that. Fantastic. Right, that is enough to make 4 chips. Great. Okay, well, I think we're going to just about be in a state where I can meet my ambition of being able to get the system up and running before the end of this episode. Yes. The only thing I'll need then will be 2 more chips in order to be able to activate alloys and superalloys. Then basically I'll need more chutes in order to make the system work properly for multiple furnaces. That does remind me I'm going to need 1 more normal chute, so let me just do that quickly and then I will quickly talk you through what the IC code is going to do. Right, so the next stage in the process. So this is where it's going to need careful track of what we're doing here. So the first piece we're going to need here is I'm going to take this transformation layer. So what the transformation layer is going to do is it is going to take a value and it's going to look up the temperature and pressure requirements to cook that kind of thing, and you can see this is pushing onto the stack the name of the ingot and a temperature and pressure for every possible one. So what this is going to do is basically run around a loop. It's going to be connected up to a pair of memory chips and also the Q button. So it's going to say that number 1 that was on the Q, that's actually going to be, you can see the first thing on here, which is why we have the buttons in the same order. So it's going to say, you wanted an iron ingot, that means we need these pressure and temperature settings, or temperature and pressure settings, to be sent to the furnace in order to get the right conditions. So it's going to read the button Q setting to see what it's looking for. If that's 0, it's going to go nothing for me to do this time. Assuming it's not 0, it's then going to read to see whether or not the output memory it's going to write to is clear. If it's not clear and it's got a value in it, it's going to jump to the end, and that's because it means that the system is still processing the last request. And when it finishes the last request, it will set it to 0, at which point it will then continue down and it will say, great, acknowledge on the button QIC that I've received that request. So it will, I've got a typo in there, I will acknowledge that by setting its value back to 0, which, if you recall, will allow it to then push the next value up. It then multiplies whatever value it finds by 3, and that's because there's 1, 2, 3 entries for each ingot, and then it will move through the stack to that position and it will read the pressure, the temperature and the hash. Bearing in mind it reads each time backwards 1 because we're doing a sub each time, so it will read temperature, pressure, temperature and the hash it's looking for, and it will load those into these 3 values. It then will process up, and as we said before, on the furnace setting, it will divide the temperature by 100 and the pressure by 100 and the temperature by 10,000 in order to create a and add those together to create a compound value to pass to the temperature and pressure memory, which it will write, and then it will also write to the target hash. But these memories are not the ones directly on the furnace. This is the first use of some of that stack of memory chips we built. These are going to get picked up in a minute by the next chip in the sequence, which is the multiplexer, and what that's going to do is decide which furnace to send them to. But for now, let's export that code. let's pull that off there. I'm going to have to start colour coding these, so let's throw that one on the floor over there, and I'm going to colour code the transformation layer chip in orange. Make sure I've got the right one. Yeah. Okay, good. And in fact, I'm going to make some more colours. Let's have purple. We haven't used purple yet, because we're now going to look at the multiplexer. Right, so the next chip in the sequence, that is going to be the multiplexer. And what the multiplexer is going to do is take the input from the memories that we've just written to, and it is going to decide, there it is, load that up. It is going to decide whether any furnaces are available to receive them. So this is going to read a series of memory chips attached to the furnaces. Now for now we've only got one furnace, so I'm going to comment these out, and I'm going to give this a more meaningful name, because if you remember we called these memory furnace 1 TP and memory furnace 1 hash. So that's the name of the chips. Right, so what this basically is going to do is going to push all the available memory chips on in order. So temperature and pressure and then hash for furnace 1, and they'll do the same if we had them for furnace 2 and furnace 3 and furnace 4, 5, 6, whatever. It doesn't really care actually. We could, in theory, given that the hash can hold 512 and we're using 2 each, connect up to 256 furnaces to this. I don't recommend you try that. Right, it will then, does some calculation here, so it knows the top of the stack divided by 2 is actually how many it's got, because there's 2 entries for each one. And what it uses is a round robin approach. So the first request will go to, if you've got say 3 furnaces connected, the first will go to furnace 1, the second will go to furnace 2, the third will go to furnace 3. But if it goes to try furnace 1 and finds that's busy, it will go straight to look at furnace 2. If that's free, it will use that. If it then says it's using that, the next request it will try at 3, and if 3 is busy, it will go back to 1. And basically that's how it works, to try to just spread the load across whatever number of furnaces you've got, keep them all running reasonably evenly, but accepting that some smelts are going to take longer than others. So it will move, first of all it will set that back here. It also measures if it's gone all the way around the loop and it's found every single furnace is actually busy, then it will need to know that. So it initializes some stuff there. Each time going around the loop, it's then going to read in the request memory, which we've just written to from the transformation layer, temperature and pressure. It's also going to read in the memory on the request hash setting. This is actually one it's going to write to, and that's because it wants to know, are we still waiting? Again, every time, all of these similar logic. We won't do anything if our output hasn't been reset to 0 by the next chip in the chain. So again, it's checking that. If that's not been set to 0, the last request is still waiting to be picked up and processed. It just won't do anything else. So that will move through. Equally, if there's nothing requested, the temperature and pressure is set to 0, so there's no request waiting. Just go to the end. Don't bother scanning all the furnaces. Otherwise, it's going to go around this scan loop. It's going to try and check each furnace in turn. So it's going to use this logic to pop off, or peak, actually not pop, the hash values for the memory chips from the stack. It's then going to use the lbn command that we used earlier to find out whether the memory chips attached to each furnace have got values in them. If they have, it knows it's still busy. If it hasn't, it can carry on. So if it gets to the end, it needs to go back to the beginning. So if it gets to 3 and you've got 3 furnaces, go back to reset it back to furnace 1. Otherwise, each time it's going to say, is it in use? If it's in use, go back around the loop. If it's not in use, great, it's found the first free furnace in its sequence. So it's going to then write to that furnace to say, here's your temperature and pressure requirements. Go start setting yourself up for that, and the furnace control chips will obviously start generating that pressure. And and it will write out a request. Now these requests are going to be used by the chute delivery system to say, I need to make this type of ingot and deliver it to furnace number whatever. So these request hash and request deliver chips will get set. It will then wipe its own temperature, pressure and its own hash chip, the ones that it received its input from, which is acknowledging to tell the next thing in the queue that actually this has done its job. Either way, it then will move round, go and repeat the loop. So that's what the multiplexer is doing to share the load across. I am dying of thirst. Let's confirm that. Let's export that. Did I put a chip in? I can't actually remember where I put a chip in, and I'm standing on the damn thing. There it is. Yep. Okay, so let me just spray that one up in purple so that I know which one's which. Purple for the multiplexer. Okay, right, now the next chip in the sequence is the beginnings of the delivery system. So we now need two things. There's a reagent router and a reagent requester. The reagent requester comes in 3 different flavors, and the reason it comes in 3 different flavors is basically because I can't get enough lines of code on a single chip, so I'll just split it by ingot type. So let's start with that, because that's the next step. So we'll take this as the configuration for basic ingots. So let me load that up. You'll see this has a configuration at the end which it was going to run. It actually runs it first. It's a subroutine it jumps to, but you'll see this is really long. It's not too bad on this one, but this is the recipes, right? So for each, so for iron, it puts them each in here so it knows the order that this chip is configured for. And then for each one of those, it will say, to make an iron ingot, you need iron ore, and you need 50 of them. To make a copper, you need copper ore, you need 50 of them. It's simple, obviously, on these, but on the ones, the super alloys, there can be obviously quite a few entries. This is basically, you can see, bumping up against the line limit, and you can imagine you might maybe have just about squeezed in a few of the alloys in here, but they're all at least one extra line, plus you'd need extra lines up here. You definitely can't get the super alloys in. So that's why. But what does it do? So what it does, again, really simple, is it first of all jumps off to initialize the stack by pushing all that information on. It then runs around a loop here where it again reads the request hash and the request delivery point from the previous step. If they're 0, it doesn't need to do anything. If they're not 0, then it's got to find what it's been asked for. So it's been asked for whatever's in R0. It's now going to go and it's basically going to scan through the stack to find which number that is. So what kind of ingots it's making. That will give it the hash value of that ingot. So up to this point it's received a value of say 1, which means iron ore. It's now converted to say, what you meant, sorry, not iron ore, it means iron. What that means is actually you want hash value, whatever the long hash value is for an iron ingot. So it now knows what kind of ingot it's looking for. So it will run around this loop here until it finds it. If it doesn't find it, it will fail and drop out. That will happen if the request is for an alloy, and this is the basic version, so that will cause it to just fail and go, that's fine, it's not my job to find a recipe for this. However, assuming that it matches it, once it does match it, it will jump out to this found it. And what that will do is then it will say, right, first of all, how many reagents have I got? So this is hard-coded on this chip. I could have done this with a define, in fact, but this was originally a piece of logic in here to work out how many reagents it had, depending on what kind of ingot it was making, and that's been simplified. So it knows how many reagents. In this case it's only going to have 1 because these are basic. So it's going to move then, and you notice when we did this configuration, whoops, I pulled the wrong window. When we did the configuration and pushed stuff to the hash, we put to the stack, we pushed these, and then we jumped to 100 to start the recipes at 100, just to create a bit of a gap. So first thing we do is jump back to 101, so the first bit of the recipes, and then again, really similar, it's just going to scan through. So it now knows it's looking for the hash value for item iron ingot, which it goes where after here? Oh look, it's the first one here. So that will allow it to lock on and go, found the right recipe. So once we have got the right recipe, it's then going to go round a very short loop, because there's only one reagent to find. And what it's basically going to do is it's going to take the so it's going to jump to the look recipe code, and it's going go around the loop until it finds it, rather, and then it's going to find it, and it's going to say, right, okay, what do I need? So it knows it now needs to read one reagent, but it needs to read 2 entries for each reagent, a hash value for that reagent, which will be iron ore, and an amount. So it's then going to peek those from the stack, and it's going to I've lost my place, and then it is going to write those out one reagent at a time. So it's only got one, that's easy, but it's going to write those out. So here we are, reading it and then writing it out to some memory chips. So now, instead of it saying I want to make iron ore, an iron ingot on furnace 1, it's now saying I want to deliver iron ore, 50 of it, to furnace 1. So it will write that out, and then once it's done all the reagents, job done, that's fine. But again, the same principle each time. It's waiting to make sure that actually in here you can see it's waiting to make sure the previous one has been processed and sent for delivery. Once it's done all of the reagents, it will then acknowledge I've requested all the reagents for the ingot you asked for, set those to 0 for the multiplexer, and then reloop. So we're going to have 3 of these ultimately. They're going to do basically the same thing but for different types of ingots. So let me just export that and drop that down there, and actually I'm going to paint that bright pink because I can, and I'm going to paint the other one white because I can, and then I think I'd better deal with the fact I'm dying, and then go and install all this lot. We can manage if you can cope with me heavy breathing for a bit longer, but I'll tell you what, I'll go and have some water because you don't really want to listen to it. So you can start to see how each piece of that system, as it builds up, is each doing a relatively simple task, but by making each piece do its simple task independently of the others, but having a mechanism to signal between them, we're able to build up some fairly complicated logic within the constraints of an IC10 chip, both in terms of number of inputs and outputs, but also in terms of the number of lines of code. And kind of from an architectural perspective, you'll see quite frequently on here what I've used as a methodology is to push a lot of data onto the stack to use it as working memory, and to then use intermediate memory chips between each one, and set them to 0 to acknowledge each stage is complete when the next thing in the chain picks it up. Right, so the last piece we need to this is the routing code, the reagent router. So we'll load that up. This took me the longest time actually to write. In the end, it was a bit of a nightmare for various reasons, mostly to do with chutes not quite behaving as I expected, and having to wait. But what this is going to do is push onto the stack the name of all of the available destination chutes. So I'm going to leave this for the moment to assume that we can have up to 3, although these 2 don't exist. Actually, on that basis, I probably do need to comment them out, or it's going to cause chaos later. And then as we expand the system, I just either uncomment these, or potentially I can add obviously as many more as I want. We can in theory have 512 destinations around the base that this can actually deliver to, and of course we could run this system just to deliver arbitrary things anywhere. What this is going to do, this is again connected to a whole bunch of memory chips, which I have been connected by the previous step. So the previous step would have said, I want to send iron ore, I want to send 50 of it, and I want to send it to this destination number, which will be how far down this stack to go. So bearing that in mind, the first thing it does is it makes sure that the refrigerated vending machine's turned on when we turn the chip on, because otherwise that causes all sorts of problems. So the main loop, what it's going to do is, first of all, it goes through the whole stack here, which in this instance is now only one item, but if there were three, and it makes sure that actually all of the flip-flop routers are configured correctly. So make sure they're all set to go straight through, that they're all turned on, and then it moves on to the next one. So that's the first bit of kind of initialization, just to make sure everything's running. What it is then going to do once they are all set, and it reaches this stage, so it goes, okay, great, they're all set, ready to go. We are now going to load up from the hash with the ingredients in, the reagent ingredient, and say, okay, what is it you need? So in this case, iron ore is going to come back here. It's going to say, well, if that's 0, then there was nothing needed, so I don't need to do anything, jump over. Assuming there is something needed, the next thing it's going to do is say, okay, well, how much and where's it going? So it's going to load that up from the other 2 memory chips that it's connected to. It's then going to move, it knows the destination is 1, it means that's the first thing on its first exit point on its list, so it's going to move the stack pointer there. It's going to read the hash value of the relevant dispenser flip-flop chute, which it's going to then use in these commands. So the first thing it's going to do is, once it's located that, is it is going to do a configuration on it. So it's going to set it, first of all, it was set to mode 0, which is straight through. It's now going to set it to eject it out the side. It's actually going to turn it off, and it's going to set the quantity that's to come out of it to whatever quantity we've requested. Now the reason we turn it off is, this is where I had to modify the code. Originally I just left it on, happily did it. What I found was that if it takes too long to find its way through the system, that actually the code ends up resetting it. So by turning it off, basically the ore is going to move through the system until it hits its target exit point. But that is then turned off, so it doesn't actually get dispensed. We also reset the memory on the ore vendor for how many we have vended, because we're going to want to read that export count later on. So what we then do is ask the vending machine to dispense the reagent quantity we wanted with the hash we wanted. So we change the setting dial, and then we request that hash, and we press the activate button. Now, a couple of things will happen here, depending on what's in the machine. Either it will do as we've requested and it will give us the 50 iron ore, or it will give us less than 50 iron ore because there's less than 50 in there, but there is some iron ore, or it won't give us anything at all. So that's what we need to know whether or not it's happened. So the first thing we do is say, okay, how many is it actually exported? So if that's still 0, it goes, okay, do you know what? I'm still waiting for that to happen. So it just carries on, just sits in this loop. It yields, waits a tick, and it just keeps going round and round and round here until it detects actually it has exported something that it was asked to export, and that's fine. I actually may need to move this in here. I've just realised that may be causing some issues. Anyway, it will wait basically until that vend has been done. At this point, it doesn't care how many, but it just wants to know it's being done. The next thing that happens is, once it's been done, it will then wait until the target flipper chute actually says it's loaded something. So it basically waits for it to arrive. Now bear in mind that chute's turned off, it can load in, but it'll never come out on either direction. Once it then arrives, at that point, it then sleeps for a second just to make sure it's fully finished loading. That was another fun experience where it would try and eject it before it was loaded and go, great, it's done, and shut it before it actually had time for the ore to move through. After sleeping for a second, it will then write out to it to say, turn on now. Now it's already been configured with how much to send and where to send, so it will turn it on. At that point, the ore should come out towards the right furnace. It then will read how many actually went through and will remove that. So if you requested 50 and only 43 came through, it's going to write back to the memory that it needs another 7. if 50 came through and you needed 50, it's going to write 0. And bearing in mind, as we've used everywhere else, writing a 0 means job done, ready for the next thing. That's really helpful. So if there is anything left to still send, so 43 and you need 7 more, that's all it's going to do. But if actually it doesn't need anything else, it's also going to reset the hash and the destination memories, and then it's just going to run back round the loop. So that one is going to go, have I got that in there? Yes, I have. Right, okay, job done. Right, now there's one other thing I'm going to do, which is I'm going to take these cans here, whoops, so that, where did I put that purple paint? Is that in my, where did I put the purple? Oh, there it is, right. Okay, I really want to get this done without having to go and feed my face, so can we just do this? And you can worry about being hungry after I've got it set up. Thank you very, very much. Right, so let's get to work. This is where the configuration gets fun, and you can see why I colour-coded those chips. Right then, so the first thing we need is, we know we need that translation layer, and that needs to go in there, and that is going to be flicked on, and then that's going to have a little whinge for a minute, and it's going to say, I need to be connected to the button queue, and I also need to be connected to 2 memories. And the 2 memories it's going to be connected to are going to be the 2 which I'm going to colour the same colour as the multiplexer, because these are the instructions to the multiplexer. Ideally, probably I wouldn't have had them spread quite so far apart, but there we go. And in fact, I'm going to colour code that so it's a little bit easier to find later, and I'm going to put the multiplexer in it. Right, now let's... Right, so this wants button Q. Actually, let's... where's the labeler gone? There it is. Label these as we go. So that's going to be IC transformation. Okay, that's going to be mem TP multi. That's going to be mem hash multi. That's going to be IC multi. Right, okay, done. Right, now let's now try and actually get this configured, shall we? So that needs to point at IC button Q. Which appears to be in random order today. Right, jolly good. That needs to be pointing at mem TP. Why are these not in alphabetical order? Right, okay, and that needs to go to mem. Okay, those do not need setting. That's now ready to go. Now, interestingly, what this should mean is that was set to a 1, this should have actually picked that up and put some settings, which it has, saying that is the hash for an iron ingot, by the way, and those are the temperature and pressure requirements for it. So as we build the system up, we can actually see it starting to work in real time. Right, now this one, so that's its temperature pressure hash, so that's easy because we've already set those. Could probably go down on the floor now, that would be nice. Oh, don't do me power critical right now, come on, seriously. And that's the... that one. What's got some power in that I can use to keep the suit going for a minute? That will have to do. It's not going to last long, is it? Right, right, and then these are the request memories. So hash and deliver, and they're going to be picked up. So we're going to do those. Are going to be the the next two memory chips, which actually are getting a bit scattered, annoyingly. I might paint them in down here. No, I'm going to do
power critical.
That one. Bought me a little bit of time anyway. Right. So these are mem request hash and mem request TP. No, not TP, that was destination. That's what happens when you're concerned about doing it quickly before you run out of battery. I'm going to have to go and recharge the battery. That is incredibly irritating. Right, that needs to point at mem request dest. That's where we want to deliver it to. And that's going to be mem request hash.
Power low.
That's what needs setting there. Good, so that's now running. That will have picked up from there, and hopefully, okay, at this stage, that has not done anything. Oh, that's called mem furnace 1 TP and mem furnace 1 hash. I just need to check that that's what I called it in the code. Right, so then the next stage is in here. This is the right, I'm going to have to go and sort this out. Incredibly annoying. So the next stage is going to be the layer to work out what ingredients we actually need.
Temperature low. Temperature critical. Temperature low.
Back out. Right, let's throw that one in there. Right, so this one here is going to be for the basic so that's going to be, oh great, and we've got a storm as well, just what I needed. Right, that is going to be the IC reagent basic. In preparation, I'm going to call that IC reagent alloy. And that IC reagent super. And then this is going to be IC reagent router. Right, so we know we've got the request information, so then these chips here becomes mem reagent hash. Whoops. Mem reagent quantity, and over there, slightly in the wrong place, mem reagent dest. Okay, so that's everything labelled. So now it should be a question of just getting these turned on. Right, so this one wants to point at the request hash memory. So mem request hash. This one wants to point out the delivery location, so mem request dest. Okay, that does not need to be set. This one is now looking for a reagent hash because it's going to write it out to that, so mem reagent hash. Don't confuse request and reagent. Request is the ingot we're requesting, reagent is the individual reagent that we are sending. Reagent, oh, that should have said quantity really rather than amount, shouldn't it? It would have been easier to read. Anyway, never mind. That is the mem reagent quantity. And that therefore is the that was send to, it was called, but let's call it destination here. Mem reagent dest. So that is now up and running. Okay.
Health low.
So at the moment those are not picking up anything, those are not picking up anything, those are not picking up anything. Okay. And none of those have picked anything up. Okay. Right, and then the final step in the process is the code to actually deliver something. So this needs to go to the reagent hash, mem reagent hash, again mem reagent quantity, and again the destination. So this is going to read from the previous step. Whoops. No. There we go. That does not need to be set. That needs to be the vending machine, and that is all. So that becomes the refrigerated vendor. And of course, that's before all the named request buttons. Refrigerated vending machine, and we're going to turn that on. Okay, well, I guess the moment of truth. If this is working, I should be able to wander over here and say, I'd like some iron, please. And assuming we've got iron in there, which we have, what it should do, if it's going to work. So it's realised it wants, so it's getting that far. The multiplexer is not working. Now I suspect I called that the wrong thing in the code, which means I've got to walk through the storm to check. I called that mem space furnace space 1 space TP and mem space furnace space 1 space hash. Okay, well, storm it is then. Delightful. Probably should have made a laptop. Right, let's import that. Let's edit that. Let's check I have called it. Oh, ever so slow when it loads that up. The right thing in the code, and I suspect I've got something stupid in here. Yes, I called it memory, so I need to just change that to be mem furnace 1 TP and mem furnace 1 hash. So there we go, something simple. Watch for those sorts of things when you are coding this up. Really easy with quite so many chips to end up calling them, and you've seen I've used already slightly different naming conventions in different places. Really easy to do. You need to be disciplined about it, more so than I am, clearly. I'm sorry that I'm starving to death. I just want to get this finished at this point, so sorry and everything. That's just how it is. We are nearly done. We'd be done even faster if I could walk faster than this through this stupid storm. This is not really what I needed to try and explain the last stage of this quite complicated build. But there we go. always the way it goes. Let's shut the door. Let's put that in there. Right, now, other than the snow clipping through the wall, you should see, in theory, at some point, of course that will reset it. When you change the chip, it will reset it. That's fine. So let's press the button again. Let's request some iron. Right, so that should now have set these as we had. So it's going to want to make iron. So that's when the reason it's an ironing got in there is it needs to know whether or not it's found the right thing, made the right thing. That's the requested temperature and pressure settings. So hopefully the thing this was missing was that pipe analyzer set correctly? Because I feel like something's not quite right here. Right, so that is set to the furnace. It's interesting. It seems to have lost its aliasing. That's complaining over there. Yeah, for some reason this is not showing me the aliasing on these, which is weird. Normally I would expect that when you run it, it would tell you. Furnace, pipe analyzer, LED, temperature, pressure, hash, and scale. That should be set correctly, so that should be fine. It's obviously connected to that because it's trying to do something. Right, yellow here but not turned on means I've got instructions. That is running. It says I've got instructions, which it has in here, but I haven't got any contents loaded, so it's waiting. And that's because this here has failed with a stack underflow error, and I think potentially that's because we've only got one destination, and it's struggling with that. Again, if we didn't have a stupid storm, it would be an awful lot quicker to go back and double check. But in the meantime, let me just... Yeah, I think I need at least 2 chutes for this to work. That's irritating. Right, well, we'll go back and wander through the delightful weather, I suppose. It's really making it easier to do this faster. Thank you very much, game. Right, that's the end of the storm anyway. Okay, so I'm going to uncomment the other dispensers. I know they're not there and we haven't got the electrum to make them, annoyingly. But I'm going to do that. At least I'm going to give it 2. I export that. I say we haven't got the electrum to make them, but I wonder if we have. We only need 2. And we've got 2, so I could make 1. Okay, so let's just let that set there. Let's make sure that was exported there. Hopefully that will fix it. It will be annoying if not. It means I've probably got a typo or something ridiculous if not. Used to be a left flip-flop splitter. If you want to use right flip-flop splitters, by the way, for your base build, you absolutely can. You just need to change the hash code in the in that chip, which is currently looking for a left because they have different hash codes. Obviously, that's not connected to anything. That's the only thing. But that should say dispenser, furnace 2. Of course it's not connected, so that's absolutely zero use. That's still going to give me a stack under run. I need some more cable and I need to eat some food because otherwise I'm actually going to die before I finish this last piece of configuration. I know this has already gone on too long, this episode. We are well over 2 hours. I'm going to have to split it into 2. I had really hoped to finish this build in 1 hour, but it is a complicated build. It will be worth it when it's finished. So knowing that this is going to be 2 roughly 1 hour long episodes, and I'll have to figure out at some point where to put that break, which is always a joy and a pleasure. I am going to, right, that is correctly configured. I'm going to stress less and just get this sorted out properly. So
Hydration
yeah, I know, let me just make some cable and I'll get in here. There's enough to make about 7 in there. Right, that'll stop you whinging about that. That can go through there. 1 more potato seed, 2 more potato seed, a soybean seed, another soybean seed, another potato.
Hunger caution.
Right, almost there. Couldn't even eat it all. Well, that can go in there. Stop complaining.
Health low.
Don't think that's going to be enough, but that's the only copper that we've actually got in here at the moment. Of course, that's going to be the next thing, is going to be to move the delivery chute in here, or even the buttons in the delivery chute, and have the whole thing left unattended. But for now, this is kind of okay. Right, I don't know if I've possibly got enough cable to get that up there. I mean, I suppose if not, at least what I do know is... Oh, I went too far. Right, actually, let's just get this, see if I can connect this up. Or maybe...
Power critical.
Oh, not power critical again. This is getting tedious now. Right, okay. Alright, we've still got a stack underflow on that chip. I don't know whether that means it really, really needs an extra. Right, I think I'm going to reset the whole system. So I'm going to pull these chips. No, okay. Thought that might fix it. Should have reset all of... Oh, that's still requesting something. Ah, this is writing out. This is actually... No, so this is working at this point. I'm not sure why I've got stack underflow. But this is now saying it would like to send 50 iron ore. It would like to send it to destination 0. Okay, so that has failed to work properly. I'm going to re-request the iron in case that fixes it up.
Temperature low.
No, right.
Temperature critical.
Back to this again. This is tedious as hell.
Oxygen low. Waste tank caution. Temperature low.
Thank you. Right, okay. I'm going to have to look at this code. Right, we need to fix this so that it doesn't require the third one to be built because it's not there. As I say, this chip was the one that gave me the absolute most headache when I was writing this code, and it's had a number of changes, so it may be a fix that I end up applying in my development world and forgot that I needed to make in here. So let's have a quick look. Where are we having the stack underflow? We're having the stack underflow when it's trying to look for the destination. It's trying to look for the destination because that is 0 and it can't find it because it tries to move that there. So actually the issue must be further up the chain where it's sending a destination of 0, and I think something is weird with the way that the setting is on that furnace actually. So I don't think there's a problem with that chip at all. I think it's a different problem further along the chain. Right, can we not whinge for a minute? That would be really nice, thank you. Just actually get this thing built. It's possible I've pointed one of the chips at the wrong memory even. That's entirely possible. There's quite a few connections to configure here. So I think the issue is that that destination is 0, and that destination is 0 because that is 0. So that means that the multiplexer is setting a 0. Look, it's pointing at the wrong one, so that was exactly what it was. That goes one more. There we go. I'm going to have to try and figure out how to reset everything now, aren't I? Okay, right, do you know what? I'm going to... Right, okay, everything's happy. I think it was as simple as that. I think the code was actually completely fine. I just had a incorrect connection. So we request iron. That now goes wrong. But, okay, so it's now saying iron ore. Still getting the wrong number. The destination is still being set wrong. The request hash set to 0. Okay, so that's acknowledged it. It's happening so fast, by the time I get over there I can't quite work out what's happened. Okay, so we're going to turn that part of the system off, so now we should capture it earlier on. So we press that button, that comes through, so it's figured out what it needs. That's fine. It won't have found a destination because this says it's already doing something, but if I reset this one, that's now reloaded it. That should have set a destination. That chip there, that multiplexer, is picking up incorrectly that that's destination 0 when it should be saying it's destination 1. Okay. Because if that was set to 1. Let's just press that again. Just check this. If I set that to destination 1, right, if I then turn on this one, this should now say I want iron ore, 50 of it, and I want it sent to destination 1. And if I turn this on, now we've got a new problem. No, now it's happy and it's doing things. And in fact, there goes some iron ore in there. It's processing. Okay, it's undershot the temperature on its first attempt, but it's loaded the iron ore to the right furnace and it's had a go at cooking it. It knows it hasn't succeeded, and it said, right, next time I need 1.65 times as much pressure. Okay, so that's great. So I need to look at this piece of code here to understand. That'll just carry on, by the way, so at some point when I come back there should be some iron cooked and on the floor there. Why it's not working, it may be because there's only one furnace at the moment and it's just not working quite correctly, but or it may be that it's expecting the name to be slightly different than it is. Who can say? Import, edit. Right, I suspect it could well be this. If it's not matching, it's not picking up the right no, because it is picking up the right furnace here. It's when it writes out to that deliver setting. So R4 is coming up at 0 when it should be 1. I think that's because we start counting at 0 in here, because the stack starts there.
Filter low.
I'm not certain, but I think this needs a line of code in here that goes add R4, R41 and just increments it by 1. I think that's all it needs. I'll do some further investigation between videos and update what's on the workshop, but I think that is the fix that is required. And again, I suspect that's the sort of fix that I identified while I was developing it and probably just forgot to hit the button to save the changes. That's the sort of finicky thing. This is why troubleshooting this has taken so many hours, and if you think it's taken a long time to build, I can assure you it's about 1/10 of what it took to design in the first place. Right, how's that going? Well, it's still trying to cook. It's emptying from its last attempt. It's now going to try 3 times as much, and that's the adaptive settings kicking in. So this is now going to try to fill. It's going to aim to fill it to 11 kPa before it turns on. Let's see if that gets it hot enough to make into iron. It needed to be 900, and I think I saw it peak at like 880, so it's almost there but not quite. So I would expect that the next time round it's going to adjust. Yeah, it's now moved the scale a bit further. So the first few test fires each time you install a new furnace are a little bit flaky because it's learning the exact settings based. It's a bit like if you've got an adaptive thermostat controller at home, it's learning the exact settings that it needs to achieve the desired output. The cool thing is, while it's busy over there doing that, I can actually say, do you know what, I would really like some copper. So I can just hit that button there, and that's just going in the queue up here. But the multiplexer's realised that there's no free furnaces, so it's just sitting on that waiting. When this finally finishes and says, yeah, I'm done, it should deliver me some copper into here. See if it manages to make it this time. Oh, that should have made it. That should have made it. That was hot enough.
Power low.
I think one of the problems is that the fuel temperature is actually very, very low when it's coming in, so it's struggling to get it up to the right temperature to light it. But that's okay, that's why we have the adaptive chip. It's frustrating to watch the first few times while it fails, particularly when like this is coming in under where you want it to go, but once it finally works, and I'm just going to stick this in while we're waiting, finally works and the whole system is doing what you want, it's brilliant to watch. It just gets on with it. Right, here we go. So it's now going to attempt, this time it's going to attempt to fill it to 12.9 kilopascals. I'm assuming that we've got enough in here. I mean, that is a possibility. Oh, there's plenty in there. Oh, that lit too early and did not make what we wanted. That's interesting. I don't know why it lit so soon. I may have just touched it the same tick it lit, but to me it looked like it lit before it was ready. Which is interesting. Yeah, it got to 78. It needs to get to 100, by the way. I think. So now it's going to go for 3.78, and it's finished emptying. This will tell us what it's going to shoot at, but that was the 78 was the peak it got to the last time, and 102 is what it's aiming at as a peak number. So we'll hopefully that will load up. We're actually going to run out of gas. I probably need to make sure that this is on, which it's not. Yeah, that will fill faster as well when it's actually got a gas feed. Right, that still did not make an iron ingot. So to make an iron ingot, we need to get the temperature to 900 and the pressure to 100. That's what it's attempting to achieve. As you can see, it is very much dialing it up. I mean, it ought to go if it actually makes it up to those sorts of pressures, it should light, but I do think it's very, very cold fuel that's going in there. I could probably do that and give it a little helping hand, to be fair. Right, there we go, look at that, it made it. And you'll see, as soon as it realised it had made it, it ejected that. So that's given it some better data that it's actually been able to measure. So it's now cooling, but in the meantime, this is now complaining again, which is annoying. What is that trying to go to as a destination? That should be destination 1. I don't know why it keeps setting that destination to 0. There's definitely something not quite right in that piece of code. In the meantime, throwing some copper in, but it's yeah, it's got itself into a state. Okay. Okay, so this is clearly almost but not quite working, which is, I'll be honest, pretty frustrating after such a long video. It's going to need some further debugging next time. I do not know why this keeps doing this. This is definitely a new problem. However, you can see the principle.
Power critical.
Power critical again. Right, well, we'll take our iron ingot and go, I guess. There we are. It's managed to make copper. Will it manage to make it while it's still hot enough? There we go, and it's closed. Right, I think that's what happened the last time. It didn't actually close properly. Right, okay, well, I'd better go back inside. And I think we'll call it a day there. There's definitely some more work that needs to be done. And I want to get to the stage where we have actually got a few more advanced furnaces running in there. I think that's part of the problem, is that we've got a lot of complicated logic around the multiplexer, which is struggling because it's only got one thing to balance, and it was really designed for two or more. But in the meantime, we managed to make some useful materials. Let's put that in there. There we go. Right, okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. It's certainly been a long build, and clearly, as I say, we've got some bugs to work out in the systems. We're not quite there yet, but you can start to see, combined with that deep core miner, that we've now got a really efficient system for getting directly to ingots once this is working properly. Pretty much just materials on demand. And actually, because of the way it's set up, when we come to wanting super alloys, it's not going to be any more complicated from here. We literally just press the button to get astraloy, and if we've got the raw materials in that vending machine ready to go, we will get a ingot of astraloy out, or stellite, or whichever other one we press. There's a little bit of complexity in that some of them rely on steel, that we're going to have to make the steel, and actually we're going to need to stack it into 25 stacks and put that into the vending machine, because the vending machine won't slice ingot stacks. But that's about the only remaining step to being able to literally just make any ingot we want at the touch of a button. The only other constraint being how long I have to wait between the raw materials having been mined, although of course with the bypass slot we can always throw additional raw materials in. So that has been a very long build. As I say, I've recorded the first two parts of this, which were part 20 and part 21, as a single video that went to over 2 hours. I had planned 1 more hour today to get that over the line. It's definitely now at 2.5-ish hours as a single piece, so I will be finding an appropriate spot sometime in the last 2.5 hours to split it into 2 videos, which will be obviously parts 22 and 23. So a 4-part build to that ore haul, well 5 if you include putting the building up in the storm at the beginning, but an excellent outcome and very scalable. We can just add more deep core miners and centrifuges on the input side, and we can add more furnaces on the output side, and just scale up production, which I will probably devote some resources to doing over the next couple of episodes, just because that means basically resources on demand to make more interesting builds. We've obviously seen what a bottleneck that silver was to get the electrum, to get those chips made. Now that that's done, well, I still need to make the other 2 chips, of course, for the alloys and super alloys once I've got the next 10 units of electrum. But the principle is good. We've tested it. I need to fix that routing bug in the multiplexer, which I shall try to do between episodes. But in the meantime, yes, I hope you found that interesting. Once the code is all debugged and working, it will all go up onto the Steam Workshop in a similar way to my alert control system, which I built on the Mars playthrough, and will be shortly installing on this base as well. So if you didn't catch how that works on there, there is a standalone video to explain the alert control system. It's quite short but worth a little watch, because that will be coming up in some point in the next few episodes on here, and that will standalone video will just talk you through, it's designed as if it was a software presentation. It will talk you through how the system is designed and architected, and I will be implementing that on here because it's so useful. Anyway, that is definitely all we've got time for in any of these episodes. I hope you have enjoyed that build. It has been complicated, but hopefully step by step enough that you are able to replicate something similar at home if you want to. Just remember to allow quite a few hours to do it, and probably wait until you've got a bit more Electrum than I had when I began. Anyway, hope to see you on the next episode. If you're enjoying this, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe and all of those good things. And if you've got any comments, leave them under the video. I do try and answer them all. See you on the next episode.